Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Kenny, for an excellent talk about this religious freedom. You had looked at it globally. I would like to focus to basically our country because the problem is here is, there's no point talking about other countries when we're having issues over here, one after the other. And it's good that we have Dipendra, a lawyer by profession, over here as well, and who is a human rights lawyer. And of course Maria Chin, my former boss in Bersih, chairperson of Bersih 2.0, one of probably the most influential and the strongest civil society in this country. And now we have access to globally, like with the global Bersih. Yeah, all over the world we have global Bersih as well. So it's a brand name of Malaysia, something that we can be proud of. Not only Malaysia boleh, but this is Bersih, right? You say Bersih anywhere in the world, people know about Bersih. So it's very good. Congratulations, Maria. Well, the issue that we're going to talk about is the future of religious freedom, especially in this particular country. And I would like to start by quoting from this United Nations Human Rights Declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where Eleanor Roosevelt, about more than 60 years ago, at the founding of this UDHR, she said, "We stand today at the threshold of a great event, both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind." I think what she said was very true at that time, and it's true now. And it's very important for us to talk about this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why? First, because Malaysia sat at the Human Rights Council a few years ago. Malaysia held a chair at the Human Rights Council, United Nations Human Rights Council. Secondly, Malaysia now is at the United Nations Security Council. And we expect a country that had held a place, a chair at the United Nations to behave or to embrace the ideas of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And what is the problem of a country that sits in the United Nations but in actual sense, in actual fact, transgress almost all the important principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? It is a problem. To me, it is a problem. As an activist, as a human rights activist, this is a real problem what they're facing in this country. I hope they won't put me under Sedition Act after this, but I know they're counting the numbers. Yeah, they're counting the numbers. So I'm going to be very, very cautious with what I'm saying today. So let's see at Article 18 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It says, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in a community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Now, many Muslim scholars, now we have a Muslim scholar, very renowned Muslim scholar, Dr. Fadlullah Wilmot over here with us. And like many Muslim scholars, they do not agree to this Article 18, right? Because for them, Islam is a one-way valve. You can embrace Islam, but you cannot live. That is why, if you were to look at the amendment by the Kelantan, the state of Kelantan on the Hudud Bill, it was clearly stated that an apostate must repent within 3 days. If he refused to repent within 3 days, then he shall be killed. Not only that, his relatives, all his belongings, his house, his car, wealth, and whatever money, everything will be confiscated by the Baitul Mal. Is this justice? So I think, it is a, a real issue in this country. Yeah, I hope Dr. Fadullah can perhaps intervene later on during the question and answer session. But this, to me, this is very serious for us to think about it and to debate, right? And to not just leave it to the well, so-called scholars in Islam, right? Professor Chandra Muzaffar had written very well, and he intimated to me yesterday about his piece. And I think that we should be able to get into a dialogue over this issue, particular issue. Well, this freedom of religion or freedom of conscience is basically what I would say as first among freedoms, because it has been argued that without religious freedom, there can be no real freedom of speech, of opinion and expression, and consequently, no peaceful assembly, association, or participation in cultural life. Meaning to say, everything is interrelated. If there is no religious freedom, you cannot expect there to be freedom of expression, right? Or any freedom of speech or freedom of assembly, like what Bersay is doing, and so on and so forth. So everything is interrelated. So let us look, okay, there's a lawyer here, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's look at the Article 4 of our Constitution. This Constitution, Article 4 says that this Constitution is the supreme law of the Federation, and any law passed after Merdeka Day which is inconsistent with this Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Now, this is a very important article, right, in our Constitution, because it says that the highest law of the land is the Constitution. The highest law of the land is not the Quran. So we have to understand this. So anything that goes against the Constitution should be null and void. Right? So we have to be clear about this. Look at Article 3. Article 3 says that Islam is the religion of the Federation. And it reads that Islam is the religion of Federation, but other religions may be practiced in peace and harmony in any part of the Federation. But it was supposed to mean that as far as official ceremonial matters are concerned, Islamic form and rituals are to be used. Meaning to say, if you are to invoke dua and so on and so forth, it should be a Muslim dua. Cannot be in Buddhist or cannot be in some other religious form. Right? But we have seen that many protagonists of Islamic State or far-right Muslim extremists argued that this Article 3 was basically a proof that this country is an Islamic country. Now, let us look at Article 11. Article 11 says that every person has the right to profess and practice a religion and subject to Clause 4 to propagate it. What is Clause 4? Clause 4 allows the state governments and the federal government, in the case of federal territories, to control the propagation of religion to Muslims. Now, to me, we can debate and discuss about this particular Clause 4, right? Because this Clause 4 has been used and used again and again by the states and also by the federal government to curtail religious freedom. They used Clause 4 to put many Shiites and Ahmadis into jail, right? The religious minorities. They had used Clause 4 to, to prevent the Christians from using the word Allah. They had used Clause 4 on many other issues, right? But we have seen, to me, I've seen that this religious persecution, I guess, it was much more felt by the Shiites and the Ahmadis within the Muslims rather than the non-Muslims. Even though the non-Muslims felt the persecution, religious persecution, but it was felt more by these religious minorities within Islam. Right? So you have heard about the Hausas being raided, they put in jails with their kids and adults sharing the same cell, and all the inhuman treatment of these minorities. Now, Professor Harding suggests that the restriction of proselytism has more to do with the preservation of public order than with religious priority. This is very important. This is what he meant. He was trying to say that it was more to preserve the public order. It was not because of the superiority of one religion or the other. So what went wrong actually? How then did we get to a situation where pluralism has become an almost alien concept and where enforced Malay hegemony the norm? Where did it all go wrong? What's the problem with our society? Why was it that when our four founding fathers had envisaged a plural society, that we are now becoming very sectarian? Like we are not only confessing that we are the Sunnis, but we are Sunnis of Shafi'i mazhab. That's very strange to me. And that is why they have taken action against Wahhabism as well, those Salafis and Wahhabis, even though it's a very vague concept in this country, but they have taken action against preacher like the former Mufti of Perlis. At that time he was a Mufti of Perlis, Dr. Asri Zainul Abidin, right? And I heard a few others as well were being detained. To me, what has happened in Malaysia in the last few years is that Islam has been dynamically propelled to the center stage of politics. It has become a medium for Malay politics, and political demands for greater Islamic priority have multiplied despite the change in political climate, of course, after the March 2008 general election, right? Even before the last election that we had last year, we had seen this, right? We had seen that the ruling party thought that by getting Malay popular votes, it would ensure that they will remain in power, and it's very important for them. And even past the recent this enactment, Hudud enactment, some analysts argued that it was basically because they wanted to retain their power. They wanted to retain their power to show that they're true to the spirit of Islam, to the real intention of past of establishing an Islamic state. And if you look at UMNO itself, it tried to portray as a champion of Islamic cause, and by seizing of Bibles and the Allah issue, and by defended the sanctity of the word Allah from being used by Christians, it had tried to portray that UMNO is also a defender of Islam. It's not only past. So they wanted to out-Islamize each other, right? So if you were to read the statement or letter by our former Deputy Prime Minister, Musa Hitam, I think he wrote that letter yesterday. Was it yesterday or this morning? I couldn't remember. This morning? Yesterday? Yeah. He said that, UMNO should not be doing this. UMNO was basically, he felt that it was wrong for UMNO to out-Islamize past. And this is a very serious case. He's a very reasoned person, who had been a Deputy Prime Minister. Of course, he was outside as well, but not as bad as our brother. Meanwhile, PAS is championing the Hudud and Islamic State agenda. The real problem of having laws such as Hudud is that it is presented as mandated by the divine will of God. And that is the real problem. You have heard now and again, past stalwarts have been saying that you have no right to question Hudud, because Hudud is basically a set of laws ordained by God. Who are you? You are just human beings, and especially non-Muslims. Why do you care? This has nothing to do with you. With the recent amendment, non-Muslims were not subjected to the Hudud laws. So that was their argument, right? We will discuss. We have Siti Kasem here. Of course, she is going to be very... So what I'm saying is that this makes such laws immune to any criticism, whereas in actual fact they were merely the product of some literal interpretation of certain group of scholars that fail to see the maqasid or higher intention of such laws in attaining the ideals of justice. To me, what is important is to ensure that there is justice. That's the whole idea of Islamic law, right? There's a Muslim scholar, Islamic scholar here, Dr. Fadullah would agree with me, right? That in the Quran, it was clearly stated, وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. And if you were to judge among people, then judge them with just. Justice is the paramount importance of the tenets of Islam, right? If you cannot do justice, then there is no point in putting an Islamic label to it. It defeats the purpose. The law of the state, regardless of its origin or basis, belongs to the state. Okay? Under this conception, no religious laws can or may be enforced by the state. All laws articulated and applied to the state are thoroughly human and should be treated as such. This is what I'm saying. So when they're saying that, adulterers should be stoned, adulterers who are married should be stoned to death, if you look into the pages of the Quran, you cannot find a single verse about this, right? It was inferred from a hadith, but people have argued about this hadith. People have argued about this hadith, and there is an ongoing debate about all this. So what is the way forward? So I'll end it by saying that we need political will from both sides of the divide, the government and also the Pakatan. Okay. Now we have lost one state. Now there are only 3 states left: Selangor, Penang, and Kelantan. We have lost Kedah, right? And yet we have seen that these Jais under Selangor were behaving like an independent state, a state within a state, right? They can take actions against anybody they like, right? And we have this Jawi, who is, I think he's, I do not know how to say this because I'm scared of this sedition law thing, but this Nick Raina case is something so stupid. They have lost and they kept on appealing against the verdict. There's no case for this Nick Raina, against this Nick Raina. And they're behaving like, it's like an independent state, a state within a state, I would say. So I say in the end, we must remember this, what Martin Luther King said. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So if people in Pakatan also behave similar to those in the government, you don't expect us to have, any more respect towards your struggle in upholding justice, freedom, equality, and human rights in this country. Thank you very much.